All right, Julian, finishing up this Thursday edition of the Locked On Eagles and Locked On Panthers podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Right now, FanDuel has the line as the Eagles being favorites at 12.5 points. Do you think the Panthers can keep it within the line of 12.5?
I think they can, and it's been interesting as I saw this line on Sunday. I looked at it again on Monday, on Tuesday, and of course here today as we are recording this show the day before it actually comes out on that crossover Thursday. And yeah, man, this has not budged at all. And I can understand Philadelphia's won 8 straight games. They are the hottest team in the NFL and quite possibly the best team in the NFC. Please, Eagle fans, don't come after me. I think Detroit's better than you right now. Now, of course, they could lose tonight. And then right there, Philadelphia can step in the conversation, maybe win this game on Sunday and be right there. I don't know what the tiebreaker would be, whether they'd have it over Detroit or not, but still they'd be right there on par as far as trying to battle for that number 1 seed and get that. Because you want to have multiple playoff games at home, Gino, but you only want to play 2 games at home in the playoffs. You don't want to play 3, you want to play 2, and that's possible for them. I mean, obviously you want to play 2 if you're going to be the number 2 seed, but either way, you know what I'm saying. I go back to kind of what you said earlier about the Eagles holding teams like around 20 points. The Panthers have only gone over 30 points once this season, and that was week 3 on the road against Las Vegas when Andy Dalton was their quarterback. Bryce, of course, led them to 27 points the week prior against Kansas City. Last week, they got up to 23. He's been playing well, as I mentioned multiple times so far on this show, and I think it's going to take them getting to that 30-point number to be able to win this game on Sunday. And then another thing you brought up too was just, can you get pressure on the quarterback? Carolina was terrible last year protecting their quarterbacks, whether it was Bryce for the majority of the season and that one game in Seattle when Andy Dalton played. 65 sacks they gave up last year. They've only given up 21 so far this season. That has been one of the biggest areas of improvement for Carolina so far this year. So I don't think that Bryce is going to be under siege on Sunday. And if he is, that would be certainly disappointing, especially knowing that Brandon Graham's done for the season, that Bryce Huff is not out there right now. Like, there's not guys on this roster that you should be thinking about they're going to go crazy against Carolina offensively up front on Sunday. So I think they can cover. It's going to come down to also maybe running down that clock a little bit more. It's going to likely be a game. There's not a lot of possession, so maybe that lowers the score anyways, and be able to stay out on the field, convert on third downs, and really convert into red zone. They're 3 for 10 the last 2 weeks into red zone, which has been a major issue for a team that going into last week was 10th in the NFL in red zone scoring percentage as far as touchdowns go. So surprising that they've been this poor the last 2 weeks against 2 teams in Tampa and Kansas City, who I think would be playoff teams, 2 teams. Certainly they should have beat Tampa. They could have beaten Kansas City. Like, that's where they can keep it close. If they can convert in the red zone, score touchdowns, not kick field goals, where they missed 2 last week with Eddie Pinheiro, who had been on a long streak of making field goals, especially at home. So I could see this being a 28-17 game and Carolina be able to cover that spread. I could see them maybe losing this game like, not even, I wouldn't say 24-14, but I think they can get there at least about 10, 11 points and not get blown out by 2 touchdowns or something like that. I think they can absolutely cover on Sunday against an Eagles team that certainly is the better team.
It's funny that you brought up that 17-point number. FanDuel currently has the total for Carolina's points at 16.5. So if you're looking at the over total of 45.5, you're realistically saying that the Philadelphia Eagles are probably going to have to score anywhere from 25 to 28 points in this game, which I would expect them to do. I said this to Lou on yesterday's show on Locked On Eagles, and we've said this for months now. They have the best bit in the NFL. They are statistically the 32nd ranked team on the first 2 drives of football games. And after that, offensively, they are the number 1 team. It is the greatest bit. No comedy writer could come up with that if they wanted to. But I think this thing is close before halftime. I think the Panthers covering that first half line would be something to consider. But the Eagles in the second half of football games, and Saquon Barkley statistically by himself has dominated in the second half. If you take his second half rushing on the season, that would put him 4th among all teams by himself when it comes to yardage total on the ground. So
I need you to tell me that stat again, though. They are the worst team in the NFL in scoring on the first 2 drives.
Yes, they do. They haven't scored a touchdown on an opening drive all season long. I believe they've only scored once or twice when it comes to field goals on the first drive of the game. But statistically, in terms of EPA and multiple metrics, they're 32nd on those first 2 drives. In the first quarters of games, they're not great. But then to close it out, They are first according to all those metrics. It
They're
is
not doing that because that's going to catch up to them pretty quickly once you get to January. Because there's no way. I mean, if they play Minnesota, I mean, Darnold could certainly give you a couple. They're not beating a Brian Flores defense if they aren't going to score in the first quarter. Same thing against Green Bay, against Detroit. Like that sounds like what ends up being the death of the Eagles if that does not change over the next couple of weeks. Like that's a terrible trend to start off the half.
This hopefully is the game to at least maybe get the monkey off their back and be like, all right, guys, like we can actually score the first drive of games. It would be nice, but call a spade at this point in the season. They're 10-2. It's been 12 games. It's not going to change right now.
Yeah, it's who
they have to figure it out. It is who they are.
Yeah.
And who they are is a team that hasn't turned the ball over much. They have to continue to do that. The one thing that has really killed them, penalties and sacks. Those have destroyed drives for the Eagles. If the Panthers are able to create pressure, Jalen Hurts will hold on to the ball for quite a long time. He likes to be Superman, and you have to take the good Superman with the bad of that. He is going to make some good plays off structure, but at the same time, there are some sacks that come from him trying to create something that is never going to be there. At the same time, he's only turned the ball over twice since the bye week, something that really affected him prior to the bye. Both of those turnovers came against the Cowboys a couple weeks ago. He's protected it well. They've ran the football well. They played really good defense. But this is a game I don't think they can afford to look over